Sarata was a Wizless, ugly-ass idiot on his way to becoming a Catman until he accidentally ended up in the same dorm as his crush. All this fish brain could think about was her, dreaming of clapping her cheeks, but the doofus quickly understood she'd sooner choke on a 7-year-old can of milk than allow him to wield his sword on her. One morning, when Sarata was repairing the sign outside his dorm, some females stopped by and began discussing how the dorm housed the school's delinquents. This reminded him of how much he despised the place. In his opinion, it was a home for eccentrics like Jean, teacher Chihiro, zany Misaki, computer nerd Ryunosuke, and the rest of the gang. Later at school, Sarata went to the staff room to meet with Chihiro, who handed him a picture of her cousin Sheena and instructed him to pick her up at the station after class. Sarata argued that he wasn't her errand boy, but she just patted him on the head. After school, he walked to the station and was shocked to see Sheena, who appeared older than the photo Chihiro had given him. He introduced himself and stated that Chihiro had directed him to fetch her up. That night, Misaki hosted a welcoming party for Sheena, which included all of the Sakura dorm inhabitants, save Ryunosuke. The next morning, Chihiro informed Sarata that he was responsible for Sheena's care. As he made his way to her room, he wondered if Chihiro considered him as her Alfred Pennyworth, given how she always made him do things for her. When he knocked on Sheena's door and received no response, he went inside to ensure she was okay. When he opened the door, he was shocked to see clothes thrown everywhere. It appeared that a tornado, or a thief, had gone through the area the night before. He realized Sheena's computer was turned on, and she had been drawing manga. Chihiro had told him Sheena was an art student, so this wasn't surprising. Sarata nearly died as something moved under the table, only to learn it was Sheena. He instructed her to get up, or they would be late for school. Sheena stood up, and Sarata yelled in amazement as he realized she was naked. He hurriedly told her to get dressed. Sheena simply threw on a shirt and would have left if he hadn't discovered some underwear for her. After she washed her face, Sarata noticed that her shirt and the floor were damp, so he cleaned the bathroom while she changed into dry clothing. He realized he had his work cut out for him. Following the pandemonium of the morning, Sarata convened an emergency meeting to vent his frustrations with Sheena. He instructed Chihiro to stop being lazy and take care of her cousin by herself. But Jean intervened, saying Sarata appeared ideal for the task. Everyone else agreed, and Sarata was officially assigned the responsibility of caring for Sheena. The next day, Sarata was in the kitchen talking with Misaki when Sheena entered wearing only a shirt. Sarata almost lost it when she innocently informed him Misaki had indicated he preferred commando chicks, so he could easily slide in. Sarata was horrified and dragged her back to her room to properly dress her before they left for school. Sheena entered Sarata's class before the conclusion of the day, informed him that she would be returning home alone, and urged him not to wait for her. As soon as she went, Mitaka grabbed him by the neck and wanted to know how he had gotten such a hottie. Sarata told him Sheena was insane and he had nothing to do with her. Then he turned to see Ayano staring at him. Sheena left school with a woman named Ayano. When she returned, she instructed Sarata to remove his clothes. Sarata declined, claiming he was not cheap, but Sheena added that her editor Ayano had encouraged her to examine the male body for reference because she was having difficulty drawing male anatomy. Sarata reluctantly consented, but continued to wear his boxers. Sheena touched him gently for reference before asking him to hold her. He was uneasy with how intimate it felt, but Sheena quickly drew away and resumed drawing. The next day, Sarata noticed a painting in an open art book on the dining table. Sheena informed him that she had painted it. Surprised, he flipped the book and saw her name prominently scrawled on the back. He dashed to his room and checked the internet for her name, only to discover Sheena was a world-renowned painter. That night, after taking a shower, he met Jean in the dining area and admitted to feeling unimportant, the only person in the dorm without a specific ability or goal to work toward. Jean informed him that he needed to quit moaning and figure out where he belonged before deciding what he wanted to accomplish with his life. He needs to quit acting like a child and get some direction. Sarata promised to leave the dorm and go to his room to email Ryunosuke for assistance with game programming, but he backed out at the last minute. A few days later, as Sarata and Alama were putting up ads for a caretaker for the dorm's cats, Sheena approached him and invited him to accompany her somewhere on Sunday. He instructed her to ask Jean to accompany her, because he was busy. When Sunday came around, Misaki informed him that Jean was taking Sheena to a love motel. Alarmed, Sarata and Misaki located Sheena's phone with Ryunosuke's assistance and stalked them through the mall like creeps. They also ran across Ayama, who worked part-time at one of the stores. When Jean and Sheena left the mall, Sarata and the others followed them to the Love Hotel. Misaki eventually left because she couldn't bear seeing Jean with Sheena, but Sarata opted to play the knight in shining armor instead. When he saw Jean seize Sheena's arm, he charged forward, fist up. Jean threw a punch that knocked Sarata out. He later awoke on Sheena's lap. Sheena pulled off her clothes after telling Sarata Jean had left, leaving him to panic. When he reprimanded her about stripping in front of a guy, Sheena assured him she didn't want anything to do with his mini Excalibur and stated she'd simply come to work on her manga. Then she inquired why he had followed her despite his assertion that he was too busy. The question caught him off guard. He stood gaping like a fish, trying to remember how to talk. Later that night, he called Jean and stated that seeing Sheena's obsession with her manga made him realize he needed to stop blaming others for his issues and start living his life. The next day, he informed Sheena that he was leaving the dorm and vowed to care for her until he had to go permanently. A few days later, Sheena received a call from Ayano. After she hung up, she announced that her manga competition submission had been rejected. Sarata felt horrible and tried to cheer her up, but nothing he said worked. Sheena exited the room, sad. Sarata, feeling worthless, hurried out of the dorm and sat in the park in the pouring rain. Jean found him there. Sarata confessed that he was surprisingly relieved by the rejection, even knowing how hard Sheena had worked on her manga. Jean said that it was natural to feel inferior to people with more talent, such as Sheena, but that one rejection would not compel her to give up. The sooner Sarata realized that they didn't mind his lack of confidence, the better he'd feel. The following day, after school, Ayano drove Sarata to a cafe to discuss Sheena's manga. She showed him Sheena's manuscript and explained that the rejection was because of the ending. As Sarata flipped through the pages, he saw Sheena had written about them, but she had reversed the roles and made the ending about her departure. Ayano claimed she urged Sheena to change the ending, but Sheena insisted that was exactly what Sarata wanted and refused to change it. That conclusion struck Sarata hard. He didn't want to leave. He dashed out of the cafe and hurried straight back to his hostel. When he arrived, he walked straight to Sheena's room and poured his heart out outside the door. He stated that he would try producing games because he enjoyed it and promised to attend a game development competition. He said that his fear of failure and rejection had held him back, but witnessing Sheena work so hard had encouraged him. When he eventually unlocked the door, he discovered Sheena sleeping at her computer. On her screen, he noticed she'd revised the ending of her manga, this time with Sarata staying in the dorm alongside her and their other friends. Her phone rang. It was Ayano. Sarata answered the phone and informed Sheena that if she continued with this ending, her manga will be published. To his amazement, she began to cry and said that she had no idea why she was crying instead of being delighted. Sarata assured her not to worry and vowed to celebrate her debut. Misaki and Jean walked in, and Sarata apologized for his previous actions. He asked them to let him stay in the dormitory. Misaki threw some confetti, and after spending some time in Sheena's room, they walked downstairs to celebrate together. A few days later, Sarata and Sheena strolled by the cafe where Ayama works. Sheena slipped and nearly fell, and Sarata hurried to save her. The three of them walked to a local park, and as Ayama played on the swing, she informed Sarata and Sheena that her earlier dizziness was caused by standing up too quickly. Sarata said she needed to rest, but she refused, explaining that her father refused to send her money because he opposed her decision to become a voice actress, and when she insisted on pursuing her ambition, he cut her off totally. Sarata then proposed that she move to Sakura Hall, where the rent was lower, and she consented. On the day she moved in, Aoyama discovered that Sarata was in charge of caring for Mashiro, and she needed all the assistance she could get. Aoyama didn't think a boy was suited for the position, so she said she would look after Mashiro. Unfortunately, after a few days, she realized Mashiro was too much to handle, and despite the others' offers to assist, she declined. During those days, Sarata was able to prepare his game competition entry since Aoyama did not allow Mashiro to stop him. One night, when Mashiro fell asleep in his room, Sarata went into the kitchen and discovered Aoyama fast asleep at the dining table. He made the mistake of waking her up and suffered a punch comparable to Satan's. When Aoyama realized what she had done, she apologized and explained that she had fallen asleep while training for her role. Sarata advised she take a sabbatical from work to focus on her health, but she declined. He attempted to insist, but it only made her upset, and they ended up arguing. As she tried to depart, she ran into Jean, who tried to use his playboy charm on her. She retaliated by kicking him and Misaki out. A week later, following Aoyama and Sarata's quarrel, Mashiro went to tell Sarata that something was wrong with Aoyama. He raced to find her and discovered she was gravely ill. He put her in bed and proceeded to notify the others. They were all sorry she was sick on the day of her rehearsal, but Mashiro begged them to let her go because she knew Aoyama wanted to come. However, before they could go, Chihiro emerged from her chamber. When she realized Aoyama was sick, she told her to rest. Misaki opened the door and informed them that the taxi had arrived, so Mashiro escorted Aoyama out. Ryunosuke held Chihiro back to prevent her from pursuing them, allowing Aoyama, Sarata, and Mashiro to enter the taxi. When they arrived at the event, Aoyama walked inside, but Sarata and Mashiro waited outside until it started to rain. They then entered a convenience store, where Sarata spotted Mashiro's manga. He showed it to her, but she didn't look at it because she was more worried with Aoyama. Later, Aoyama emerged, and they overheard a girl criticizing her for allowing their group to fail the presentation. Aoyama went away crying, blaming herself. Sarata consoled her, reminding her that it was not her fault and that she should learn from her mistakes rather than feel horrible about them. When they arrived home, Mashiro refused to leave Aoyama's side, staying with her all night. The next day, Sarata brought food for Aoyama and fed her, telling her that Mashiro had asked them to let her attend the rehearsal. Mashiro awoke at that point, so Aoyama thanked her for watching over her and informed Sarata he could continue to look after Mashiro. A few days later, Yuko, Sarata's sister, came at the dorm and was taken aback to see an almost naked Mashiro on top of her brother. Sarata contacted his mother after dressing Mashiro and leaving Yuko alone with him to find out why Yuko had arrived. She explained that Yuko didn't want to share him with other females because she had heard he was surrounded by them in school. After hanging up, Sarata pondered how he would handle both Yuko and Mashiro while working on his game pitch. Then Aoyama entered. When she saw Yuko, she quickly assumed the worst. Sarata promptly revealed that Yuko was his sister. He then entered the hallway and was astonished to see it flooded. Mashiro admitted that the bathroom tap had broken, but she had failed to tell it earlier. The next day, Sarata entered his room and found that Yuko and the girls had taken over. When he grumbled, Yuko asked him to show her around town for shopping and sightseeing. He agreed, and, as expected, Aoyama and Mashiro followed suit. Even though there was some friction between Mashiro and Yuko, everything went smoothly. After going to the temple to pray, Aoyama found Mashiro and Yuko were gone, so she and Sarata started looking for them. Sarata eventually discovered them near the temple and was forced to pay a candy vendor because Mashiro had taken a candy apple without paying. The following day, they took Yuko to the train station. Before departing, she told Sarata that she wanted to apply to his school so she could be closer to him. Just as she was warning Aoyama not to seduce Sarata, the train doors shut. Days later, Sarata received a letter stating that his game proposal had been picked for presentation. He also received a second letter from an anonymous source asking him to teach them the definition of love. As he sat in his room, pondering who the sender could be, Mashiro entered and begged him to educate her about love. When he realized she had written the letter, he inquired as to her newfound interest. She added that Nanami advised her she needed to understand love before writing about it. Just as Sarata explained that he couldn't help, Aoyama strolled in and instructed Mashiro to quit harassing him. While he was explaining, Misaki swung into the room with her rope and tackled Sarata. Frustrated, he kicked everyone out to concentrate on his presentation. When he was finished, he presented a mock presentation, and everyone pointed out where he could improve. He thanked them and went back to work, ready to perfect his plan. Finally, the big day arrived, and he went to the location. Unfortunately, he was so frightened that he made numerous errors. His proposal was refused, and he returned home brokenhearted. Mashiro noticed him sitting outside. He pretended everything was okay and instructed her to leave him alone. What he did not realize was that Aoyama had witnessed everything. She later told Ryunosuke and Misaki what had happened. Misaki, hoping to cheer him up, suggested they throw a pool party. She even packed his room with swimsuits, hoping he'd choose one for Aoyama and Mashiro. When Aoyama walked in, she thought Misaki was being disrespectful to Sarata's sentiments and suggested it was a bad idea. However, when Misaki said it would be a wonderful way to spend their final day of summer vacation, Aoyama reluctantly consented. They all headed to the school pool. After swimming and playing for a time, they gathered for hot pot. Before they could begin, a security guard appeared, so they fled. Ryunosuke explained that they had technically broken in, and they quickly found a spot to change before heading outside to watch the fireworks. As the fireworks lit up the sky, Sarata told Aoyama that he would submit another proposal because he refused to let one rejection prevent him from pursuing his objectives. The next day, Rita, Mashiro's friend from England, arrived suddenly and surprised everyone by asking Mashiro to accompany her. Mashiro refused, and when Rita insisted, she kicked her out of the room. Sarata, on the other hand, was concerned that Rita would have nowhere to go, so he pursued her and returned her. Rita stepped out of the shower with only a towel, so Sarata offered her some of Mashiro's clothes. When she got dressed, she discovered Mashiro's pictures in his room and disclosed that she knew he had drawn them because they had previously studied art together. She revealed that she had quit for personal reasons. That night, she opted to sleep in his room because Mashiro was still upset with her. The next morning, Sarata awoke to find Rita sleeping on top of him. Just as he was about to get her off, Aoyama strolled in. She quickly suspected the worst and labeled him a shameless cat. Everyone else soon arrived to take in the event, including Ryunosuke, who revealed his face for the first time. Mashiro yelled at Sarata all day, convinced that he had sided with Rita. Sarata, feeling misled, sent Mashiro an email clarifying his disagreement with Rita and advising her to never stop drawing comics. That evening, Misaki offered that they all collaborate on a presentation for the school festival. Everyone believed it was a wonderful idea, and Sarata was appointed director. The next day, they held a rooftop meeting. Ryunosuke informed them that they needed to present their idea to the school board for approval. Rita warned them after the meeting that if they wanted to finish on time, they had to stay focused. On their way home, Mashiro recommended asking Rita for assistance, but Sarata countered that Rita had abandoned painting. To their amazement, Mashiro insisted on helping. When they approached Rita, she declined, claiming that she had stopped painting because she felt she could never be better than Mashiro. She said that she had hoped Mashiro would fail as a manga artist, so she could understand the agony of failure. Ryunosuke frankly told her that she was acting like a jealous Karen and should quit hating those who were better than her. Rita fired back, labeling him a miserable shut-in loser. But Ryunosuke turned it around, insulting her even more until she became overwhelmed and fled. Sarata and the others discovered her sitting in the park. Sarata persuaded her to talk to Mashiro. Rita eventually apologized for her envy and hugged Mashiro, telling her she wanted to be friends because she loved her. Rita assisted them in preparing for their presentation over the next few days. They were successful in convincing the school board thanks to her support. The group then devoted all of its attention into completing the project. Sarata overheard Rita on the phone one night, saying Mashiro would be returning to England after the festival. Sarata attempted to question Mashiro about it, but was pulled away by her companion. Later, in the preparation room, Sarata was astonished to see Ryunosuke disguised as a maid. Following an explanation, Ryunosuke assisted Sarata in reviewing the climactic scene, which he eventually enhanced. Thank you for watching to this point. This is not the end. For part 2, don't forget to like and subscribe. We got other interesting anime recaps for you. Choose the left or the right video.